Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Some people say that history is a dead science, and some others argue that actually is pretty much alive. And they argue by providing this evidence. You will find out, you will discover more and more historical facts about events in general that would change the depth of history. So, therefore, you should always be allowed. I don't know if we got to this position where we have to make this disclaimer, that means things are fucked up. But I will have to make it. We should be allowed to look into any historical event and studying it and try to find more and more and more, unless you think that it is finite. That's it, which is not. I have here an example where if these researchers wouldn't have, do their job, we hadn't found this. So up till yesterday, I guess, we thought that Caligula's party ship that he had, Caligula, the former Roman emperor, had a big ship that he was having parties on. Like right now, the wealthy have their yacht. That's all. And he had a lot of parties over there. Now, up till yesterday, I guess, we knew, history told us, that it was not the Nazis who bombarded it and blew it up during the Second World War, but it was the Americans. It doesn't matter who did it, but the blame for all these years was on the Germans, the barbaric Nazis. Okay, put that aside. Now, if these guys, the scientists, would have not been allowed, which should not be even spoken about being allowed to do a research on an historical event, then we never know that. We never knew this. We never knew this. But because that's a subject that was allowed to be researched, then we found more about it. And that more changed the whole perspective. So it was not these perpetrators, it was these ones. Not that it will change anything because the whole thing is already up. You know what I mean? But at least the same thing with the Katyn forest. Remember that one? Hey, Polish friends, wake up. All right, you should be listening now. The Katyn forest was the place where the Soviet Union, the NKVD, right? Those guys, you can check who, you can guess, you can get the names as well. They got the Polish intelligentsia after they invaded from the east and the Nazis from the west, but the good countries declared war only on Germany, not on Soviet Union. So these guys went and they rounded up the Polish intelligentsia, got them in the Katyn forest and committed mass murder. They shot them in the back of the head. Priests, teachers, officers, and the people who knew stuff. Why? They destroyed the culture so they can come with theirs. That's what the Soviets did. Hey, Ukraine was part of Soviet Union as well, okay? So, fuck up. All right. Anyway, so here it was. This is in case you tried to say, oh, it was the Russians. No, it was the Soviets. And by the way, it was on those times when a Georgian was in charge, which is Stalin, okay? Vissarionovich Djugashvili. That's his name. Go and check him out. So he was now Russian. And Kaganovich was his henchman. Go and check him out. Kaganovich. Yeah, go ahead. I dare you, triple dare you. Anyway, so let's go back to this. And then they blamed, after the Germans attacked Barbarossa, the Barbarossa attack plan, however you want to call it, it escapes me right now. They attacked Soviet Union. They discovered this Katyn forest, mass graves by the Poles, told them. And they discovered and they invited the Western media to take pictures. And they took pictures. The Red Cross came. And then until 1991, at the dissolution of Soviet Union, it was blamed on the Nazis. The Nazis did the massacre of Katyn forest, not the Soviets. I wonder why. And then when Russia opened up its archives, they found out it was them. And only then it changed. So I think that was in 1940. Was it 1940? When the Katyn forest happened? Something like this. So 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 50 years we thought that it was the other guys. And then we found out it was the other guys actually. And we have the names as well. So again, if we would not be allowed to do research on that, which the Soviets, I'm guessing they were not allowed to do the research because they would find out it was them. Probably they already knew. You know what I mean? They shushed it. So and then after 1991, they were allowed and they found out it was the other one. So we know who did it. The same thing with Caligula. And therefore, I'm militating for each and every subject on this history that we have to be allowed to be, I don't know, studied. No? Or are there some certain taboos that you cannot do any more research on, let's say, I don't know, the invasion of, I don't know, Soviet Union by the Germans. That's it. You can't do. It's by law you can't do. You can. There's nothing like that. If you find something new, that's good. They would change the whole thing, even if different perspective, maybe add to the whole point, to the whole thing. So let's go with this Caligula thing. This article comes from Business Insider. It's from April 30th. Oh, what a coincidence. 2023. Roman Emperor Caligula's massive party ship were not burned by the Nazis during World War II, researchers say. A US artillery unit was to blame. I wonder what did they find over there. So this is it. I read about it, and I read about this, and I read about what they found after that. And I think there's some documentaries also online if you look for. Beautiful, beautiful. For decades, many believed the Nazis were responsible for the destruction of Caligula's Nemi ships. The massive first-century boats were used for the debauched Russian emperor's love for partying. This Caligula, if you remember, he named his horse a senator. You know what I mean? It's like, for instance, I don't know, you have certain officials nowadays in the US government, they are dumber than a horse, but they have a big position in the government. I don't give names, but you can figure it out. Anyway, a new book reveals US artillery was accountable for the burning of the ships, the Times reports. The history behind the destruction of two boats known as the Nemi ships that belonged to the notorious Roman Emperor Caligula has been shrouded in mystery. While many believed the Nazis burned them during the World War II, a new book finds that a US artillery unit was responsible for their destruction. Caligula, known for his taste for opulent luxury and love of outlandish parties, had the pleasure boats equipped with artwork, including marble statues and mosaics, archaeologists believe. I think it was on a lake. That's how they found it. They drained the lake. I think they found it over there. I think that's after they drained that lake. Is it here? It doesn't say here, but I think that's what I remember. The massive party boats, measuring between 230 and 240 feet, that's a small ship. Divided by 3 and you find it in meters about. So anyway, that's 70 meters. It's big for those times. Stationed on Lake Nemi in Italy, there you have it, were ahead of their time as they had a plumbing system for running water. Unbelievable, these Romans. Beautiful. While it is unclear why the boat sank, popular mythology says that Caligula, ruler of Rome from 37 AD until his assassination in 41 AD, sank the ships himself during a drunken orgy occurring to the travel outlet. Caligula's boats were recovered from the bottom of the lake in the early 20th century and kept in a museum by Italy's fascist leader Benito Mussolini. What do you think about this one, huh? However, the relics were destroyed during the war in a fire. At the time, it was widely believed that Hitler's Nazis were responsible for the burned ships. But a new book shines a light on their history because we are allowed to conduct research on this subject, claiming it was a US artillery unit that burned the vessels. Now, someone should come and say, hey, you're a Nazi boat burning denier or something. And I'm quoting, it was easier to point the finger at the Germans, and the report was a hurried attempt to blame them, end quote. Stefano Paolucci, a historian and co-author of the forthcoming book, The Burning of the Nemi Boats, told The Times. Woo-hoo, now that's not good. Wow. US soldiers with mortar shells scrawled with anti-Hitler chalk message 1943. Now that's not a nice picture. Or maybe it is. I know. A lot of gold here, baby doll. Good for you. Big smile. Good for you. Anyway, so it was in 1944, New York Times headline read, Nazis burned Gallery of Ancient Romans. A report at the time written with the support of US and British officials, no, the victors write history, found that the boats were burned by Nazi troops in 1944, according to Times. Believe in Times again, and not Times because it was these guys again. So they lie for a long time. Who doesn't? Okay, let's put it this way. Accusing the Germans of committing a crime against civilization. Oh, sounds familiar? Remember? So the US and British officials found that the boats were burned by Nazi troops. They found, and they said it, and Times reported it, accused the Germans of committing crime against civilization. Okay? Hello, Ukraine. In 1944, the New York Times headline read, Nazi burned Gallery of Ancient Romans. The Germans denied it, I'm quoting, but that's been the view for 80 years before we analyzed the report and reanalyzed it didn't add up. And realized it didn't add up. Unquote. Flavio Altamura, an archaeologist and co-author of the book, told the Times. The two researchers believe, I don't like this word, that the US shells, you know or you believe, that's two different things, hit the museum roof during the war, which likely caused shrapnel to hit the wooden boats and destroy them. Other reports at the time that corroborated the theory were overlooked at the time. Of course, they needed 1,000 years to allow truth to come up. They said because of embarrassment by the Allies forces. Now, to be honest, do you think these guys hit it because they won it? They just bombarded, they flattened out everything. That's how they bombarded. And they talk about a crime against civilization. They carpet bombed, if you remember, Dresden. And I think it was also not Nuremberg, Hamburg, and not only carpet bombed. What are you talking about? Embarrassment. They were all embarrassed themselves a long time ago. The researchers also, and I'm also anyway, I'm gonna recommend the book. It's the, I think, Burning of Dresden, or Attack of Dresden, or Burning of Dresden, by a British historian. He wrote it in the 50s, late 50s or 60s. His first name is David. That's all I can give you. The researchers, at that time, he was a good historian. Then he started writing things that swam against the current, and then he became a very, very bad guy. Don't read it. Don't read the guy. David. Okay, David. The researchers also argued that an Italian heritage official who led the inquiry into the destruction of the ships was eager to blame the Germans and ingratiate himself with the Allies to overlook his ties to fascism. And I'm quoting, our research won't give us back the boats, correct, but we believe, I don't like this word, believe, we have cleared up the mystery and shown that whoever is doing the fighting, war is always destructive. Well, you're so pacifying. Are you the same pacifying with the Russians and Ukrainians? I wonder. Are you going to take the same, well, whomever is doing the fighting and all that, it's always destructive, so they're both to blame. Nah. Anyway, my point is here. Let researchers do their job and don't call them names for something more, finding something more. I must be hungry. I ate a word. So anyway, this is it, my friends. I'm glad, not that they found it was the Americans. I don't care. Honestly, to embarrass the Americans. They embarrassed themselves. They carpet bombed Germans like shit out of them. Anyway, there's a lot. If you remember Howard Zinn, if you don't remember Howard Zinn, then you should read a few books of Howard Zinn. I know he's a anarchist and all that, but I think in one of his books he was a machine gun and a bomber, I think, was he? And he tells some stories. I think he wrote, if I remember correctly, some stories about what the orders were and how they were attacking civilian convoys of a certain kind of country, civilian convoys. Okay, so it's about embarrassing. You drop 2 atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki on 2 civilian towns. It was embarrassment. It was beyond being embarrassed. My point is, don't call people names. Don't prevent them from finding the truth. And exactly that will happen in Ukraine, it happened in Vietnam, it happened in the Second World War. And you know who did that? The victors. And the problem is the victors are the one who supposedly are the ones with free speech, the free world, all that. How is that possible? And then you're called all kind of revisionist, denier, babalaya, kopoloya, pakapaka, tapakapa. Those are not the defenders of truth. Those people, no, they are tyrants. That's the word. You prevent me from doing my research. Are you afraid I'm going to discover something? Yes. That will run against your script? Yes. All right. Thank you very much for being with me again today. We settled here the whole issue. Stay strong, stay smart. Look for the truth and be just.